All right, let's get into how I made this cool sidewalk utility electrical box. You see these on the sidewalk all the time, and I really, wanted to make one, so I did. I did quite a bit of stuff on this box, and I'm really happy with it. It's the first one that I've modeled and printed, and I tried a few different techniques and stuff, and I'm just totally happy with the way this came out, and I want to share with you how I went about weathering it and painting it and stuff like that. So right off of the build plate and with a coat of, I say a coat of primer, but I actually picked up the wrong can and wasn't paying attention. This was the 2-in-1 primer gray paint. So it's what it is, man. It's not going to really change anything. It's still going to be a dark green box, and we're going to mix up that paint right now so that I can get it flowing through the airbrush. And I mix my paint up in these little medicine cups, and then once I get the consistency that I think is going to flow, it's going to atomize correctly, then I dump it in the bowl. Sometimes it's not quite right, so I just crank up the air pressure, but it's all good. We're using an Iwata Revolution on this one, and so it's a bit of a thicker nozzle, and you'll see I'll really get to blasting that stuff out here to cover this as quickly and as thoroughly as I can. And you see I spray in the towel there, and I give it a little spray on my glove just to make sure that paint is coming out first and not water from my last rinse. And then I don't try to get this all on one big blob because, I want to make sure that I get a good adhesion. And though this is a 2-in-1 Rust-Oleum primer on the bottom of this, I still build up my layers of paint. I put the first one down real light, and then I let it dry for a minute, and then I go ahead and get back at it. The thing about the base coat of spray paint, I really like that because it's real durable, and it creates a real hard finish, and I like that. So once I got that thing painted green, I'm just going to get over here and we're going to start weathering this. I'm going to pick out some base colors of pigments that I want to use. And this is a change for me because I'm not doing any rusting on these things. And I'm sure some of them probably have rust in real life, but the one that I modeled, it didn't have any rust. Well, for that matter, it didn't have any stickers or any graffiti on it either. It was a pretty new looking one. So I guess I could have, gotten a little carried away with it and taken some artistic liberty and rusted it up, but I didn't. I kept it pretty intact, and I just kind of weathered the outside of it a bit, and we're going to do some washes here. You see I picked up a bottle of alcohol. That's just isopropyl, and I keep it in a spray bottle, and I'll make some washes with the alcohol. And I like the alcohol for the pigments. It sets them in real nice. It's less expensive than some of the paint thinners that you might use to do this. And I just think it's great. You get a big bottle of it for $3 or $4 and you're good to go. Mix those pigments up in there real nice. And these are just like washes right here at this point. Instead of using paint, I'm just using pigment. So I'll add enough alcohol to dilute the pigment down enough to where I think I get a good thinness. I don't want it super black because it's just a wash. I want to go through and just begin to add some different lighter areas and then, darker areas. I'll start out light and see what it's looking like, and then I'll build it up. You can always go darker, but with this, you don't want to start out too dark because you're going to run into a problem. And so these are pretty potent pigments. That's a tongue twister. Pretty potent pigments. You say that 3 times. I could barely say it once. But we're going to do a little bit of a switch up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dry brush. I decided to change my approach. Instead of doing washes, I'm going to go ahead and brush on some powders, and then I'm going to spray the entire body with isopropyl alcohol, and you're going to see what that does. You can go through and do washes too, but this is a big piece, and I don't think that the individual washes were going to give me the effect that I want. To begin with. So you'll see here as I dry brush this stuff on, and I just I use a firm brush, and I brush these pigments down in there, tap off the extra, and this way they kind of get a nice soft feathery look. And then I'll spray that with alcohol. I'll go back through with a sponge and just sort of press it lightly, not dragging, just press lightly, and the pores from the sponge leave a nice print on the model. If you find that you don't like the print that the pores leave behind from the sponge, just spray it with alcohol, let the alcohol dry naturally and evaporate, and it will smooth all that out, and you'll get this really nice powdery look that is really, really nice in my opinion. It's a really soft, feathery, powdery look, and I dig that kind of look, and that's what I wanted to go for on here. Once again, we'll knock that stuff back with the sponge and press that into the little nooks and crannies and press it around and move it around, not dragging, just lifting and dabbing. And you could see it's got a little bit, well, it's kind of hard to see because I'm going fast, but sometimes the sponge leaves behind the pore pattern, and I like that, and sometimes I don't want that, and so I'll spray it and let the alcohol evaporate, and it'll give me a randomness of pattern on the body of the model that looks more believable. And so same thing here. I'll just drag the pigment onto the body, and I'll feather it on there with the brush and kind of pack it in places that I want it to be more dense, and then feather it back to parts that I want to be a little lighter. And then look at that. I mean, it just, it's all up to you, man. I mean, this isn't hard. The alcohol really does the work, it seems like. It makes me look good, but that's what I do. I'll start with the blacks, the darks, and then I'll add some browns, because when you see these, any structure that's weathered in real life, there's not just black in the crevices. There's blacks and browns and different colors of water staining and all these different levels of texture and color in there that's not just black. And so I want to try to emulate that, and I add browns, and then I'll add whites, and different things like that to give the model quite a few different layers for the eye to catch to. And also for when you photograph this, if it's just black washed, then I mean, it might look okay, but it photographs so much better when you have all these different levels and layers in there of color. And not just color, but this leaves behind small bits of raised edge textures and stuff like that too. And so the autofocus on the camera can really hone in on that bit of contrast, and when it photographs and light hits it, it gives the photograph a texture and a realism that is much nicer than just a plain old black wash. And so or just doing it with airbrush. Sometimes people will airbrush the texture on there, and while that looks nice, there's no real texture to that, and so it photographs fairly smooth. But when you put textures on there, the textures get lit and they photograph and they translate into the photo really nicely. And so I really dig that. And so here I'm just going to add, I don't often use the white, but I thought it'd be really cool here, man. We'll just really lightly dust that on, because a little bit goes a long way on the white. So, and there's my phone going off in the corner. Why wouldn't it be? and there it is for everybody to see on YouTube land. Anyway, so we're going to take some gray paint, just apple barrel paint, whatever kind of gray. I think it was elephant gray or something. And I'm going to paint the bottom of this. This is supposed to be a concrete slab that was poured that this utility box sat on. I'm going to be using a product called AK Terrain's Concrete. But what painting it gray first does is, since I water the concrete product down from AK Terrain's a little bit, it ensures that no green will show through and kind of ruin the effect of the concrete. It allows me to water down the product a little bit, and the gray paint hides the green, and so I don't have to worry about there being any gaps where green shows through. And so we'll just paint this on here, let this old apple barrel paint dry. Gotta love apple barrel paints, man. Use them a lot. I airbrush with them. I do a lot of stuff with apple barrel paints. I really like having those, and they're so inexpensive. You can airbrush with them, but you really got to thin them down, and it takes a second to do it because they're pretty clumpy inside. But for the price, man, they're incredible. I love them. I use them on my dios. I mean, I use Vallejo paints too. You know, it just depends on what I'm trying to do. Wouldn't make any sense to use Vallejo paint and then cover it up with a concrete product. So you just got to kind of decide what's going to work best for you at the time. Now we're going to get this product out from AK Terrains, and I'm going to go ahead and brush this on. This is a really cool product, and I use it quite a bit. A friend of mine turned me on to this a few years ago, and you know, it can be pricey, and I have not found a way to DIY this product because if you want to use grout, or if you want to use, like, you know, some sort of concrete, you run into chipping and cracking, and that stuff will chip and crack. This here, you put it on and it hardens and it looks like concrete, but it doesn't chip off, it doesn't crack, it doesn't flake. It's really a cool product. So I give up on trying to make one, and I just spend the $23 or whatever it is and buy a container of it. Sometimes you just tap out, you know. So anyway, I thought it'd be a good idea to use a piece of cereal box as a stencil on here, but that just proved to be more difficult than it was worth. So we just go ahead and paint it on and be really careful. Now I'll take some Vallejo, I think it's aluminum, and I'm going to get after that handle right there. I was so proud of that handle when I modeled it, man. It just came out so curvy and sexy, man. It just was a smooth, awesome handle, man. It just looked really nice. I'm really happy with the way that came out. Using forms in Fusion 360 to model that, getting better with that tool little by little. That's a difficult tool to get a handle on, and pun intended, by accident. But you know, there's so many details in this little piece, man. I'm super happy, and wondered why I didn't model one of these sooner. And if you just go down the street, there's ones that stand up on stands. There's ones that sit flat on the sidewalk. There's ones that have, you know, extrusions out of the side with meters and cables. There's so many varieties of these. There's double doors on the front. There's just so many varieties of this type of utility box that, you know, I got out there with my tape measure, and I'm measuring this in the morning and getting all the one-to-one measurements so that I could come back and enter them all into my scale calculator and make sure I got it all right. But it was really a fun process, and much simpler than I had anticipated. I try to model stuff that's within my skill set, trying to go a little bit further sometimes and push my boundaries so that I can get better. But now once that concrete product has dried, you'll know it's dry because it's solid white. You can stain this, you can paint this, you can do all kinds of different coloring techniques to this. It just soaks that stuff right up. And this is a brown with an IPA. I'm just going to dab it on with a sponge. And I'm using the IPA once again because it just dries quickly. If I was going to put water on there, you know, water takes a whole lot longer to dry, and then you run into problems where you could add too much water and then sort of waterlog the product and begin to affect the finish of the product. I will say also that before I did any of the IPA spray on and putting those pigments on, I did clear seal that model after I painted it with a Mod Podge aerosol, knowing in advance that I'm going to be spraying IPA on there. I didn't want to take that acrylic paint up off of there with all that dabbing and rubbing that I did. So if you're going to do this technique with the alcohol or even with water, make sure you spray seal the model before you get after it with the weathering. And I use an aerosol because if you use the regular Mod Podge and brush it on, you're going to get all kinds of brush strokes. So the aerosol Mod Podge goes a real long way. You've got matte and gloss finishes. They're not that expensive. You know, I mean, they're like $13 or something a can, and sometimes you can find a good deal on Amazon, or you just get them at Walmart, man. It's not bad. So we're hitting it with the heat gun here, drying that up, cleaning the bottom up. I got some black Mod Podge on the bottom of there just to kind of put a base on it. The base isn't really that important, but I didn't want to leave it unpainted. So, and for those interested, the STL files for this are available on my Etsy and my website. So you can check the Etsy and my website, insightfulimagery.com, and scoop those files up. But in the meantime, I'm going to use this AK Terrain Streaking Grime product, and you can put this on with a sponge and sort of stipple it on. You can brush it on. there's a lot of ways to do this, but once again, make sure that you go ahead and, I don't show you on camera here, but I spray seal between all these different layers that I'm doing. I spray seal with the Mod Podge aerosol so that I protect the layer beneath the new one I'm working on, just in the event that I ruin something. It sort of minimizes the risk in that. So at any rate, the streaking grime needs to dry now, and then I use a product from AK Trains also. It's a white spirits, and what it does is once this lacquer based, not lacquer, what do they call it, enamel based streaking grime dries, and it'll do it quickly because I've put the heat gun on it. Then you go through with your brush and you dip it into the white spirits, and that's basically a lacquer thinner or an enamel thinner, and it begins to, and then you take your brush and you go through the streaking grime product, and it streaks and grimes it and makes it look sort of muddy and streaky, and it's really a cool product. It's gonna really fit in nicely on this model right here. And it really only takes a little bit of this product because it will wipe away all your paint if you put too much on or you drag it through multiple times, which is another reason I put down the Mod Podge aerosol beneath the previous layers, because it helps minimize that risk. But I'll dip it in the white spirits, and then I'll drag it off. I'll make sure my brush is good and wet, and then I'll drag off the excess either on the side of the bottle or on a paper towel. And then I'll go ahead and hit those areas that I applied the streaking grime product to, and just sort of reshape it and drag it down and make it look streaky and make it look sort of random in its pattern and its presence, so that it just looks weathered. And it allows you to reshape that product, and if you don't like it, then let it dry and add a little more of the thinner and rework it, and you can keep doing that until it dries, and you spray a sealer over the top of it. You'll keep being able to change the shape and the opacity of that just by adding more of the thinner and lightly going over it with the brush and reshaping it. So it's a pretty cool product, and I've had that bottle probably for 3 years, and I'll probably have it for another 10 because it doesn't take very much. It goes a long way, and I don't use it on every product because sometimes I'll use that, sometimes I'll use washes. Really just depends on the product that I'm using, but this would fit the bill perfect on this product, so that's what we wanted to use. Look at that messy table I keep. So many different sized brushes and pieces of paper towel and sponge. I'm sure you folks all work in a similar fashion. Anyway, so we're going to continue to work this product around a little bit and make sure we get all the little streaks in the right places and all the little grimes in the right places. And once again, this is another product that leaves behind a little bit of a texture, a little bit of something for the light to grab onto in your photograph. And so all these things are really helpful in creating a photograph that has lots of cool little details that your eye catch onto. If you saw the pictures in the beginning of the video, then you know what I'm talking about. It's really nice to be able to, capture all the little detail and crispness. And products like this really help, and processes like this really help. Well, let's quit yapping and take a look at the progress that this made. See all that streaking and the griming and the running down in the corners, and that's where I try to apply stuff like this, is in corners, on edges, in transition areas between two pieces of metal maybe. That's where you want to use this kind of product. Door handles, hinges, vents, things like that, and so it's a great looking product, and I like it. And on to the next part. Now I get out the micrometer or the digital caliper, or those are the only two names I know to call it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to measure the screen area on here because I don't recall what it was when I did the modeling. I just know that I made it deep enough to put in a piece of plexiglass in there if I wanted to. So, but the original dimensions I can't recall. I think it's like 0.70 by like 1.5 or something. We're going to find out right here. That's what the digital caliper does. And that way I can get me a screen measured, and I can start building the stickers for this. I'm going to create a sticker, what I did is I went on Google and I just Googled abandoned wire panels. And I got all kinds of different images that came up. And I found one that I thought looked pretty good. I just took that in Photoshop and resized it. And then I ran the stickers that I wanted through the Cricut. And it cuts them for me and to the right size that I need. And it's totally perfect and totally awesome. And it saves me from having to cut everything with an X-Acto knife. And this is being printed on sticker paper that also I spray seal, because I will stain the stickers also so that they look a bit older and sort of, weather damaged and stuff like that. Here's the Cricut Maker. And this one here is the one that you can do a feature called Print and Cut, where you create all your images and it will cut the sticker for you. It will go around all the little, intricate edges and everything. It's perfect. So I'm going to put the face of this wire panel in. I peel it off the sticker paper. I grab it with the tweezers, press it down on there, and I've got, right away, you've got a wired panel that it looks like you can look inside there and see. So it's pretty cool. And some of the utility boxes I saw online for sale didn't have features like this. They were just a closed door unit. And while that's cool, that may be all you need, I like to do a little bit extra sometimes. And once again, it just photographs better. And at the end of the day, I photograph all this stuff, man. That's what I like doing. I like making photos and, having that one little extra level of coolness in the photo. So then I've got all these other stickers here. And I will say, too, that the 94621 there, when you look at these units as they sit on the sidewalk, they all have a number on them. And they're usually in black and yellow. So the unit number that I made for this actually isn't just random. The 94621 is my zip code. So there you go. So, and these are awesome because once again, these are printed on sticker paper. I run this through my inkjet. It communicates with my Cricut Maker, and it prints this out on sticker paper. No more gluing or Mod Podging pieces of cardstock that you cut with an X-Acto knife. None of that hard stuff, and this saves time. So at any rate, it's just a matter of choice wherever I want to put these things. You got to have a bail bond sticker on there, right? I was looking for a massage parlor sticker too, but I couldn't find an image I thought was good on Google to turn into a sticker and make it like a handbill and put on here. So that'll be for another time. But we did some cool cigarettes, signage, just some old random signage I thought, would look cool on here, and we'll weather it up and scratch it up a bit and make it look just as aged as the utility box itself. But look how cool this is coming out, man. It's just so fun. And I decided what I'm going to do on the back. It's a big area on the back. You'll see later what I do with that. I'm going to do a city map and kind of like one of those vinyl wrap city maps, and then weather that and tear it up a bit and put it on there. So now it's time to measure the screen area itself. And for those who don't know, and a friend of mine, I was showing him the other day, he was using his caliper, and I told him, I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "If you're measuring an inner diameter, you flip it over." He's like, "I never knew what that was for." So anyway, digital caliper has two sides, one for an outer diameter, one for inner. Anyway, we got our screen measured, man. I'm going to knock off some rough edges and put it in there, prop it up on some old fishing line, do a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm taking that streaking grime, and I've already sprayed this with an aerosol Mod Podge, and I take the extra off of the brush on the paper towel, and then I really lightly go across the faces of these stickers just to give it a little bit of knock the white back and knock some of the color back just a little bit to make it look like they're not just new stickers put on there, on top of an old box. I wanted it all to look sort of weathered. I've got the Hecho and Mexico stickers on there. I've got some straight out of Oakland stickers on there. I've got the Oakland map on there. I've got Children's Fairyland from Oakland on there. Just some iconic Oakland signage that I thought would be kind of cool to put on there. I've got the tree, you know, of Oakland on there also. And I've got, of course, my logo on there also as a sticker. So that's the fun thing about this stuff, is you can just kind of do whatever you want to do with it. It's yours, man. You know, make it your own. But you'll see here later that I take the map on the back and I go ahead and I weather that up and tear it up a little bit and make it look like some, you know, torn or peeling vinyl. My thought was, after I started doing it, that I should have taken, and this is just water in the cup, I should have made this out of cardstock so that it would tear. But since I printed it on sticker paper, it won't tear. It doesn't have the same, it's not the same material, so this doesn't really tear. It more like it peels. So anyway, it worked out because that was more like a torn vinyl sticker that you would wrap onto one of these boxes anyway. So anyway, it worked out. But I think it looks pretty cool. Tell me what you think. For those interested in the STL files or buying one of these props complete like this here, check out my Etsy or my website, insightfulimagery.com. Like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. You know, I hang around a lot on Instagram and get in there and do lives and painting and different things like that. But anyway, I appreciate everybody checking it out, man. In the meantime, take care and we'll see you next time.